This podcast contains strong language and adult themes.
Hello and welcome to What Lingers. This is the podcast from the people behind Storytelling Lisboa, where we uncover the questions behind people's stories.
I'm Cristian Figueroa.
And I'm Liz Melchor.
And we are the team behind Storytelling Lisboa, where once a month, 10 storytellers get on stage in front of 200 people and tell true and personal stories related to a theme.
We don't produce anyone. We encourage newcomers. The night is free for all. We want an inclusive stage dedicated to fostering community, sharing the human experience.
And we just love it. But, honey, there is a problem. We always have lingering questions for the storytellers and no format to ask them. Until now.
What Lingers is a chance to dive back in, inviting storytellers to retell their stories and stay for a conversation in front of a smaller live audience at LX Brewery in the heart of Lisbon.
Liz, in this episode, things get a little bit hot, and I like it because things get really graphic. You know what I mean?
Like really graphic sex? I know what you mean because I have seen this storyteller on stage tell me all sorts of positions and details, and I have to admit, there is an image in this story that lingers for me more than perhaps any other story I've ever heard.
Absolutely. Something I love about this storyteller, he's just unapologetic about things, and I think we all should be a little bit more like that, but
yeah, I think he's definitely like an inspiring person, and also he, on a very basic level, he cracks me up, and his use of detail is amazing. A reminder that we recorded this in a legit brewery, and so you may hear a bit of background brewing, and a reminder that from the start there is adult language and adult themes.
Okay, so let's get into it. Mm-hmm. Not pun intended, but here's Benny.
It's summer, and I am on an overnight 6-hour bus ride between Montreal and New York City. But it's really exciting. But it wasn't really exciting because this bus, it's a bad bus. Like, it is dark and dingy, and the seats are torn and tattered, and the noise. There are babies crying, more than one baby crying. And there are people listening to music without headphones. But you know, this time, it's not that bad. And the reason why it's not that bad is because of Hot Guy. And I have written the survival guide to the overnight bus ride, and it just has one singular tip, which is find yourself a hot guy. Yeah, I live by this. And anyway, there's no assigned seating on this bus, which means that I get to pick my place, and I pick it at the very front of the bus. And the reason why I do is so that every time the bus stops for smoking breaks or border patrol and people need to disembark and board again, it means that hot guy needs to cross my seat to get to his. I thought very strategically about this. Yeah, and what's great is that every time he crosses my seat, he looks me dead in the eyes and he smiles. And I don't know if I've made it very clear yet, but I find this man very hot. He has these dark wisps in his hair, and he's bespectacled, and he has these tortoiseshell frames, and again, that smile. Like, if I were not already sitting down, then I would need to sit down. Yeah, and I spend the entire duration of this bus ride contemplating, should I pop on back there and sidle up in the seat next to him and, whisper something to him under the blanket of darkness, or maybe even get an actual blanket and drape it up over our legs and do a little something underneath. but I don't. And instead, I just stay planted in my seat until the bus pulls into the station. And now we've arrived at Port Authority Bus Terminal in New York City, in Manhattan, and I can never find the exit in this place. I always get lost. But this time in my hunt, what I do find is Hot Guy. And I didn't approach him on the bus, but fuck it, I'm going to approach him now. So I walk on over to him, I cross this distance, and I reach out my hand, I say hello, and his reply is, hola. And I'm like, fuck, he does not speak a lick of English. And I come back at him with, hola. Like, I'm scrambling, trying to put together any of the Spanish I remember from that one time in Argentina. But what's most importantly, the line that I'm really trying to translate is, I want you to fuck me. But anyway, we get to talking and I learn a little bit about Hot Guy, and it turns out that his name is Diogo and he's from Brazil. And everyone, it's my first Brazilian. Yeah, I know you've all had a Brazilian too, but and I've lived in Lisbon for 3 years now, which means that in this time I have had 1,000,001 more Brazilians. Not to overly sexualize them, but at this point it was my first, and it was just so special. And it turns out that Diogo is doing a tour of the United States. Again, doesn't speak a lick of English, and it's with what little Spanish she has, which means that here we are, these two bumbling buffoons, trying to communicate in whatever broken second language we have. But what we managed to communicate to each other is that we're going to have a coffee date right now, in this very moment, immediately. And we settle on a beautiful, local, small, like all-American coffee house, Starbucks. And yeah, I'm sure you've all had that too. And anyway, so we're at the counter and we get these cups of like mocha frappa double lappa, I don't know, like chai latte with a shot of chocolate syrup and extra whipped cream, and it doesn't matter. We take these drinks up to the second landing and we select the smallest table. And again, we do this strategically so that our legs can touch from underneath the table, but just our legs. And we're locked in on each other's eyes, and again, still, like, we are obsessed with each other's eyes, so much so that nothing else exists in the world, and so much so that when he reaches for his drink and brings it up to his lip, he misses his mouth. And now there is like this thick stream of white foam leaking from his lip, reminding me of other things. So I use this as an opportunity to reach on over and wipe away at his mouth, and then he uses it as an opportunity to lean in and kiss me. No, but I lean back. Yeah, it's shocking because I have morning breath, and I have coffee breath, and we're in an open public space. So, like, Diogo wants to kiss, but I don't. And this time we get up from our seats and we leave the establishment. And now it's the next day, and we've organized a date in Central Park because the sexual tension between us has really just been mounting. And we set a plan for the date. We say, first, walks and talks, and then cocks. So I like rhyming. It's even on dates. So we're sauntering, we're moseying about through the paths of Central Park. You know, and we're telling each other about our respective lives, and that goes on until we decide to tell each other that it's time for sex. So we hurry on over to the bushes. And it's because we're gay, so we don't need a bedroom for sex. And I'm telling you, it's Pride Month in Lisbon right now, so once that sun sets circa 10 p.m., the bushes be bumping. Just look out for it. We might see each other there. Anyway, so Diogo and I, Central Park, Diogo and I, we found this hidden clandestine opening. And you'd really need to strain yourself to spot us there. And we know that we've picked a good spot because littered on the ground are used condoms. So we know we're not like the first guests of the day. and yeah, so we're really settled, and he bends me over and pulls down my trousers. And from his bag, he procures this full 1-liter bottle of lubricant. And everyone, he came prepared. Isn't he so romantic? And I can tell he really cares about me because he has been carrying that around with him all day. And it's full and 1 liter, so you know it's heavy. Yeah. Anyway. So he's greasing up my hole. And then while he's doing this, I start to hear this faint music in the distance. But the thing is, the music is growing less and less faint, which means that it's moving, and it means that it's getting closer. But it's not just music, it's also bells and whistles and voices. So I'm thinking, what the fuck is this? So I peek out from behind the bushes while he's still preparing me, and I see like mobs of people, rows and rows and rows and rows and rows, like bobbing in unison back and forth. And like some of them are waving flags, and others are holding up posters, and some are clapping and others are cheering because it's a parade, okay? I am on all fours, ass out next to a parade. And it's not just any parade, it is comprised of families, okay? There are parents with their children, and I'm a teacher. I don't want to be caught, because as much as every teacher desperately wants to change profession, I do not desperately want a criminal record. So, I say to Diogo to stop. And he wants to continue fucking me, which is so sweet and so validating and so affirming, and it's what every little boy wants to hear. But it's just like, no, so I don't. Again, I don't. So we gather up our things and we hurry on into the masses. And the thing is that, I have been living my life denying myself heaps of opportunities. Opportunities that I don't necessarily want to be denying myself. For example, there was that time that I could have had a 3-way with 2 hetero-flexible Australians in the parks of Budapest. And there was the time when I could have fucked the night janitor over my desk at work. And there was the time I could have cuddled with and kissed and had anally penetrative sex with my first Brazilian in New York City. But I didn't do any of those things. And instead what happens is that I walk around harboring a lot of regret on my shoulder. And the thing about regret is that it's really heavy to carry, almost like a full 1-liter bottle of lubricant. Yeah, so I've made a vow to myself to stay more open and to lighten my load by staying more open to opportunities. And I'm really pleased with myself. I think I've been very effective in this practice, and I've been proud of my action, because the other morning when I was getting home from a night out at the clubs, and this guy stopped me and asked if I wanted to give him a hand job in the middle of the street, this time I said, I do. Thank you.
Benny, thank you so much for being here. I love your story. Oh my God. But first, we know you from the past, but can you quickly introduce yourself more fully to the audience here in the venue and people listening at home?
Okay. So I'm like a horny school teacher, as you know from my story.
Yes.
I work primarily with kindergarten students. Yeah, and they don't know anything about this. But I'm an Anglophone from French Canada, which really matters when the place is always at war with linguistic politics. And part of why I moved away is because I was a linguistic minority and I didn't want to face any more systemic discrimination. And I came to a place where there are more English speakers, Portugal. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, and I started storytelling, I think, in 2018, so it's been about 6 years.
Okay, so I have to say that as organizer of Storytelling Lisboa, people come up to me and they reflect back on different storytellers, and one storyteller that is always very memorable for so many people is you. And the Central Park, you in the bushes, is also an image that people they're like, Benny, Central Park in the bushes. It's very much connected to you.
I have a legacy, I'm really proud.
You do, all And I think you last with people for so many reasons, and you're a great storyteller, and I love your use of detail, and I love your preparation. So actually, maybe let's start there first with how you prepare, how you decide. I really like your use of detail and which details you choose, the tortoise glasses, the wisping hair. So how do you prepare when you tell a story?
Yeah, okay. So the way I used to prepare when I was new and taking storytelling workshops is that it would be a 7-week process, and I would write different parts of the story at separate points. I would have test audiences of friends who would give me really detailed feedback on the story. I had a list of guiding questions that would help tailor their feedback to what I needed. But then as I started telling stories more regularly, I thought the process needs to be shorter than 7 weeks. That's a very long turnaround for stories. So now now I've integrated a lot of feedback and memorized it and apply it naturally to the story. So now the process is really about 3 days. Yeah, I've compacted that all into 3 days.
And you're talking about memorizing, are you somebody that memorizes sort of almost word for word, or do you memorize kind of moments and scenes in your mind?
Okay, so I have been taught that I should memorize a skeleton of my story, just to know the main beats and the main flow, and then the rest should be filled in, improvised and spontaneously. But there are certain words, there are word choices that I make it a point to make to express my voice as a storyteller. And for that, I memorize it verbatim. But I memorize it to the point that it's supposed to be a natural tell, where then it moves beyond the point of seeming memorized, and it does seem as if I'm improvising the story. Or that's what I hope to achieve. But I do memorize verbatim, even though I was taught not to.
I think from all of the storytellers we normally have, you are one of those, I can tell, you really prepare your stories, yet you seem really natural on stage, and when you tell them, you deliver them in a soft way. I can tell that your jokes are really clever, and not everyone had that chance of being funny and clever at the same time on stage, and you manage all of those things, so congratulations.
I need you to write the post-its that I hang in front of my mirror every morning.
Thank you. Write your recommendation letter.
Christian's good at the affirmation.
Yeah, that's it.
And then the other thing I think that sticks out with your stories is that you're very open about sex. And one thing that I really love about how open you are about sex is, well, one, that you're willing to get on stage and be just very open, but you don't use euphemism. Right?
Oh, okay.
You speak very directly about sexual act, anal penetration, and this is rare, to be honest, because I think that sex is one of those things that people feel a bit of shame, and so it can be hard, or they feel that the culture holds it with a bit of shame, and so it can be hard for people to just be so honest. What makes you able to be so direct?
Okay. I have several answers to that.
Go for it.
So one thing I do love about Quebec is that it is a global leader in sex education, and I do have training in sex education. And one part of that training is that you are supposed to be using technically accurate vocabulary with the children to demystify the human body and relationships and sex. So I just bring that to the stage. And then also I spent almost all of my 20s in Germany. And that, yeah. Hence the directness. Yeah, yeah. And I have a lot of Portuguese friends who tell me that the Portuguese love to live in ambiguity, and that's why there's a bit of resistance between me and that culture. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So those are two of my answers. Yeah.
Was it ever hard for you? I mean, was it something that was, hard in the beginning and you got over in any way, or are you doing it because it's not that hard and it's a gift in some ways?
No, I think I'm going to be honest, it's a bit of indoctrination. I believe that this is how we should be speaking about sex. So I stand up on stage and act as a model of that.
Yes, and not only about sex, but specifically about gay sex and queer sex. Because I have to tell you, Benny, when I first started storytelling in 2019, I think I was probably one of the only queer storytellers for probably a year or two. And I was always sharing my stories. And then when you came, I think you were one of the few first storytellers bringing these queer stories, queer experiences. And as Liz just said, like really raw and just as it was, because I'm still Colombian, I'm still Catholic. Yeah. I'm very ashamed of a lot of things still. And then you were there like just giving it all to everyone, and I love that. But so yeah, thank you. I really want to thank you because I feel like we started expanding storytelling Lisboa as a project. We managed to bring it more inclusivity, and your story is definitely connected a lot with the community here in Lisbon. So yeah, I really appreciate your stories and your openness about it.
Before you were telling stories here, they were different stories, and were they more like emotional and sort of like sob stories or something like that?
Yes. I first started using storytelling as therapy because one of the parts of stories is resolution, and normally resolutions are happy endings, and I would look back at the most tumultuous, conflict-ridden relationships of my life, so obviously my mother, and yeah, I would just look at my past and think, okay, what needs to be resolved and what do I need packaged as a happy ending? So a lot of them were dramas and were very emotional to tell.
And you say happy ending, so was that about sort of mining the story and figuring out the happy part that was existing already inside it? Or were you sort of forcing? No,
reframing, finding the silver lining. Yes, coming to peace. Yes.
Yeah, I think for people listening at home, they've never been to our stage in Lisbon, but there is a huge community, so always a warm space, and we have all sort of stories, like from happy and sad stories, or something that I remember I used to tell at the beginning of storytelling when I started hosting, is that when I was writing my stories, I sometimes catch myself like, yeah, I'm going to share this story about 10 years ago, this guy I met, and then I was crying, sobbing, writing the story for the stage. So people don't realize the power, probably, if you're new to storytelling, how healing it is to actually rewrite your story, rewrite it, retell your story, and reprocess 10 years later, 5 years later. Like, it's so powerful, it's so healing. So I do believe this, and it gave me a little bit of, you grew and you're better because you probably don't need much of the sobbing stories, and you can have more fun with your life because you're in a different state now.
Yes. There's only one story I have left to tell about my past, and it's about my relationship with my maternal grandfather, because he was very Sicilian Roman Catholic. But I think after that, I'm good. I've done the healing that I need from storytelling. I need new problematic relationships.
I feel like that makes life fun, right? You're like, well, at least I get a story out of it. If it all goes bad, you're like, yeah. And does what does the comedy do for you? Does it make it easier, or I mean, when you think of telling a story that is more tender, maybe, or touching, or something more sad, is that scary? Is that vulnerable? Because I think you tell stories that so many people would find so hard to tell, be so scared to tell. But I'm almost wondering if what story would be really hard for you to tell?
I think I'm really comfortable on stage. Yes. I think the only story that would make me uncomfortable is if I'm considering the comfort levels of the audience. And then I think that they would be in too much discomfort and I wouldn't be caring for them properly as the storyteller. Those stories would make me uncomfortable.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And going back a little bit with this, because the 7 weeks process really linger with me.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're always super friendly with the storytellers and we want you to have fun on stage and here. Probably I'm speaking for myself. I normally tend to write the story and just deliver it as it is or with the skeleton, or I've been trying to improvise more because if I try to memorize word by word, I get too anxious, and if I forget one word, I'm gonna go blank. So do you think you're having more fun, or are you enjoying more your time now that it's shorter than when you're spending, like, I don't know, a month to prepare the story?
Yes. Now that I'm 6 years older, I just don't have 7 weeks anymore. I'm running out of time. Yeah, but no, so I think I do consider how fun the process of story writing is for me. That is something, not always with the timeline, but more in the format. So I always try to learn different ways to tell stories, and that way I stay engaged with the process of storytelling with that change. Like, I think there was one time on your stage that I formatted it like a memoir, and I broke away from the storytelling format and went into memoir as a writing format. And that really, I think the audience was less engaged, but I was definitely more entertained during the process because there was novelty and unfamiliarity.
I want to know if, have audience members ever come up to you afterwards and given you like reflections on your stories that have lingered with you?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. The first time I told a sex story on your stage, a person in the audience came to me. It was about anal sex, and I was very descriptive about being a bottom and what it means to be entered. And a cis female came up to me, and she said, I was able to relate to your story because I also need to be entered in sex, and there's an equivalent of vulnerability. And I never thought, maybe this is ignorant, I never thought of women as being able to relate to gay sex. But that's what I learned. Yeah, or like sex between men and men. Yeah. Yes. And that was the most impactful, that kind of lived with me. I thought, okay, that means that people really are projecting their own experiences onto my stories. They're relating to me. In their own way and in ways that I cannot conceive of ahead of time.
So you talked about being in Starbucks, but you said he tried to kiss you and you leaned back and
Yes.
you said it was your breath, and I get it, after the bus ride it's a bad situation. But then you also said it was a public place.
Yes.
And that struck me because I'm curious, like, was that because did you not want to kiss him in public?
It's because a coffee house is a lot more public than a park.
Okay.
No, I do have shame around public displays of affection. I have been like spit on for being homosexual and had a lot of hate speech hurled my way. And so I don't want to be in this sexually vulnerable experience through this kiss, needing to stay on guard from surrounding aggression. So I'm very uncomfortable with PDA. The difference between the coffee house and the park is that the coffee house was in an open space. There were other people dining. And then in the bushes, we were really concealed. It was much more private.
Yeah, how do you feel about that in Portugal? Because, I mean, I live in Brazil. And if you live in Brazil, you learn to live your life in a different way of being more open and just more easygoing. And I'm so grateful for that experience in Brazil. But I feel like when I move here, I have to go back to my little box because, for example, I don't see gay couples holding hands in the streets in Portugal, or even kissing, or not even straight people, actually, now I'm thinking. So how is your experience now, like, being gay? Like, I don't know where you spit on, in which country you were, but can you tell us a little bit of your experience here in Portugal as a gay person?
Okay. I've been feeling, to be honest, I do agree that Portugal is very conservative. There's still an influence of religion here. This is to me, no offense to the Portuguese, I'm only speaking to me and my experience, but so I can understand feeling a bit more guarded in Portugal, but I also have felt really liberated here. Yes, I've had yes, but.
And why do you think that is?
I mean, you are away from home. I think when you're away from your country or whatever, that is closely related from home.
Maybe there's the
that's
anonymity. Maybe there's the anonymity. I would need to think about it a bit more. I've just had a lot more positive sexual experiences here. I think it's because of the nightlife. I go to so many, less now because I've developed a really bad relationship with drugs, but in like the last year, I was going to a lot of circuit parties, a lot of warehouse parties, a lot of sex parties, and I've been finding it through that. I've had a lot of sex positive experiences here, and from that I've become a lot more comfortable with my sexuality and with the public displays of my sexuality. So I find it's been a bit of a growth in Lisbon, even though I understand that not everyone might have that same growth because of the general conservative public.
I love the fact that you mentioned that he was a romantic because he was holding this one little bottle of Lube, because I think that people that never had anal sex, they don't understand or comprehend. Or probably like not even gay anal sex, like Lube is so important. So important, it's so romantic. So yes, please, lube it up.
There's a whole fucking toolkit with anal sex. It's so inconvenient. Yeah.
On that note, do we open it up to the audience? Like, I'm sure you guys now have some stuff to ask Benny.
Okay, so I gotta know, what the hell was the parade? What was going on? There was children, there was parents. Did you ever find out who interrupted your fabulous time?
I hate that whole community now. No, okay. So this is where I did not say the name of the parade because it is a detail that I could not remember. And I know that at the time I knew what the parade was about, and I'm nearly certain it was an Independence Day for a local Hispanic community, but I could not remember which one. And I thought, let me not be offensive and just say it's a parade.
That's a good call.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm curious, how did you and Diogo communicate?
Spanish.
Was it? Okay.
Yes. We both had enough Spanish to move through first date topics. And then also when you're fucking in the bushes, you don't end up talking a lot. Yeah.
I suppose you never learned how to say, I want you to fuck me in Spanish.
No, but I can say it in Portuguese now.
So I was just wondering, have you ever been asked on a date after telling a story on stage? And is there any good stories about that?
So that is something that is happening now, where recently this person came up to me and said, I'm your biggest fan. And then it was very interesting, and then started mapping out all the times he has seen me in Lisbon and has not approached me, but has wanted to approach me. And that has finally approached me, and we've been on some dates now. So if you just stay tuned for a few more months.
No, I literally was gonna say, okay, like when's the story? When do we get the full story on the stage? But that's actually amazing.
Yeah, but it's not a story. I'm not ready to tell the story because I'm still living. I'm living it. It's happening now.
That's awesome.
Having listened to episode 1 with Sandy on it, there is so much which sounds like storytelling is a place to re-signify places and episodes in our lives. And I am wondering, listening to you as sort of a person within the LGBTI spectrum, and no, it's not just about gay men, but obviously the specificities in different things and different bodies. And I know the person who came up to you after that story, she's a mate of mine. The woman who came up to you. So please don't take it like it's only in your sort of box, you know. a lot of what you said is probably very useful for everybody in the audience who might not actually be within the LGBTI spectrum. So thank you for your sex education. The question is more about, as I'm listening to you and as I've listened to a lot of your stories on stage in Fábrica Braço de Prata, I'm wondering whether your catharsis about telling things so openly and so detailed. Liz used a lovely word, which I've now forgotten, to say how kind of descriptive you are, and how much of that is about the sex education you've had, the opportunity to have in your life in Canada, and you're kind of spreading out. Do you think that might apply to other issues beyond sex? For example, racism and discrimination and skin color and language, which you've obviously hit on tonight, and a number of other things. I don't know if that's quite clear to you.
Storytelling as a way to address those hot topics.
Yes, and in your case, with the obviously skill and mastery you've developed in using, something as important as sex and sex education is it a transferable skill for you to do it on other types of things society needs to hear more about?
Okay, I have two answers to that. One is that I think, like I said, my first phase of storytelling was to resolve internal turmoil and tension. And then I feel that I have experienced tension with linguistics and my language profile, and also with my sexual orientation. So I think that I can only speak to that on stage. But then there is a branch of therapy called narrative therapy, where people can be guided through telling stories about their lives to, again, reach resolution with those stories. And then I hope that by the time I'm in my 50s, that I am licensed as a narrative storyteller. So even if I can't tell those stories because they're not my stories, I would love to support other people in sharing their stories. Yes. Thank you.
Next time I'm going to take a bus, I will text you first. But well, it appears you're an expert on bus travel, but in order to take the front seat on the bus, how early we should be at the terminal? Shall we sit behind the driver or the other side? Window seat, corridor seat? Should we have a luggage, backpack? Like, what are your recommendations for a beginner on a bus driver who wants to have a nice date?
That was amazing.
Do you have tips? But because I also feel like it's like the dream, right? Like when I was single, like get on an airplane or the bus, and then you see the hot guy, and then to ride off into the sunset when you get to your destination with the hot guy. Yeah. And what happens is usually there's no hot guy, or there's a hot guy, and you fantasize the whole time, and then you never see them again. But yeah, how did you make the moves?
I don't know. Okay, so I was thinking, as I mentioned in my story, that I did write a survival guide to the overnight bus ride, so I can just send that to you as a
Please do.
And then there are times when I am more bold and when I am more brave and when I do approach the person, and I think that's just when I'm more confident, but it is definitely not all of the time. Yeah, I just need to be in, but there's a signal system, right? There's communication. He kept on making eye contact at me, and that was pretty much his expression of interest. So then it was easy for me to reciprocate because I already knew it was green lighted. It wasn't the biggest of risks.
So we're teachers, yeah, yes. And people often desexualize teachers, like people who cannot talk openly about sex, or they don't connect sex to this persona that we have as teachers, yeah? Do you feel that people react awkwardly when you tell them that you're a teacher after having talked about sex so openly?
I don't think that's an experience I've lived. I think the experience I live is that sometimes people sexualize me because I'm a teacher, and then they want me to give them detention. And then I say, I'm not doing that.
I mean, I have to say, my first boyfriend was my uni professor, so I understand that. Yeah, he was older. I like them older.
That's a fantasy.
But yeah, I'm interested, like, people find sexual... There's something about being a teacher. Maybe a domination, submission, teach me something, authority, power. Yeah. I can tell where we're going.
I have a quick question, sorry if I may. What I thought was really amazing about your story was it was obviously something you were very comfortable telling, and the way you performed it was highly entertaining. But I noticed that you clearly like to riff in moments where the audience are laughing at something and you just keep it going a little bit further. You go off on a slight tangent. Now that to me seems very improvisational, not rehearsed. How much do you love that? And are those moments something you've learnt to do over time, or is that also naturally something you're good at, improvisation? Because I thought those bits were the bits that I almost loved the most, where you kind of went down a path and we didn't quite know how far you'd go, but the audience also loved it. It was a kind of push and pull, which I thought was amazing.
Yes, thank you. So that is also something that's happening live at this moment, where I have been told by people who are stand-up comedians that I am great at riffing, but I honestly don't understand how I'm great at riffing. So I am taking workshops with people who are helping me break down my stories so that I can understand my patterns and then reproduce them purposely. Because right now it's improvised, and I know that it's a recipe that works, but I don't understand that recipe.
Thank you so much, Benny, for being here tonight and for sharing everything and being so open with the audience and with us.
Yes, it was amazing to have you here again, and we just have two final questions before we let you go. And first, the first one is, what is one thing about you that no one ever expects?
I think people are surprised that I have never been in a long-term relationship. And that is not something that has happened for me yet. And I am still learning how to create that.
Okay, yeah. What do you call a long-term relationship? Because I mean, straight, gay, men, women, we all have different concepts in Colombia.
I guess when you...
What would you say in Canada, what is like a long-term relationship?
I think I wouldn't put a time to it, I'd put a feeling to it, like when you're invested in each other's lives, when you're reciprocally, emotionally, and physically attracted to each other. Yeah, when you commit to being accountable to the other person. Okay.
The very final question, and then we will let you go. But what is your biggest takeaway from sharing your story?
Oh, that I'm really funny. That's it.
That's it for this episode of What Lingers. Thanks so much to Gonzalo and his team at LX Brewery for hosting us.
Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And also follow us on Instagram at Storytelling Lisboa to keep up to date.
What Lingers is a podcast from the team behind Storytelling Lisboa.
It's produced by Johnny Bunyan. Thank you so much for listening, and join us again for another edition of What Lingers.
See you next week.